Haven't Seen It with Tim Sestito and Tommy Taverner. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you all so much for listening today. This is a podcast where one of us is watching a movie for the very first time, and today that is both of us, Tommy and I.
Really?
Yeah, I'd never seen Barry Lyndon.
I thought the reason you wanted to cover this was because you've seen this a ton. You told me you own the Criterion. I was like,
I
oh, this
bought
must
the
be one of
I bought
Timmy's
the cri
movies.
I bought the Criterion because it was on sale when I was in Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Somebody for my
50% off sale
birthday.
all month.
Yeah, so I bought it. Um, yeah, so Tommy started this movie up just before me. And Tommy, what would you say your initial reactions to Barry Lyndon were?
Oh, I mean, maybe I was not in the best mood, but like I hated this movie at first, and it took me a while to get over it. But like, I just think there's some stretches in this movie that are painfully slow, and for me, like that, like I feel like the use of narration in this movie is a little too much, a little too overindulgent. I think that Kubrick could have used a stronger edit in this movie, but because for a while I was just like the pacing just glacial. And I think that towards the end of the movie, I started getting a little bit more why the pacing was glacial, but still made for a tough watch at first time. And maybe it's sort of improve on rewatch, but initially I was just like, oh God. Like I told Timmy, like, I want to turn this movie off right now.
Yeah, you literally
Like,
text, and you're usually pretty good about not texting. Like if you're about to
to be
watch a
fair, I was
movie,
texting you during like bathroom breaks or whatever.
yeah, sure. But
Yeah.
we were like you're usually pretty good about just not texting me about during a movie unless like hey, good like if we're recording after work or whatever. And it's just like, hey, I'm watching now. I'm gonna be done in 15 minutes. When are you gonna be done? Okay, cool. Like we'll record it whatever time.
Yeah.
When I'm seeing Tommy just firing messages off like multiple times, like it was not even it's like I was just sitting there and I was like, now Tommy knows how I felt when he made me
Yeah.
watch Evil Dead 2013. Like
Literally, I was thinking that the whole day, where I was like, in the middle of watching this movie, I was like, this must be how Timmy feels when I make him watch some shitty horror movie. Not like the Texas Chainsaws that you like, but the ones you're like, oh God, we're watching Cloverfield right now. Oh God, what are we doing?
dude, Final Destination, like, and that's like a 90-minute movie, and it felt so long when I was watching it. I was just
It's
like,
funny because that movie feels like that for me.
yeah, so interesting. Yeah, this movie definitely feels its length for sure.
Mm,
It's not like it's roughly the same runtime as like an Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer feels an hour quicker
yeah,
when
seriously.
you're watching it. This is definitely a big take. It's one of my few blind spots of Kubrick's main catalog. Some of his earlier stuff, like Spartacus and beforehand, I haven't seen still.
Mm.
I feel like I've seen a good bit of his full catalog now.
And
And
we've covered, I think it's our
this is our
second or third,
third, third.
because we covered Strange Love and we covered Eyes Wide Shut. Eyes
Yeah,
Wide Shut is much more my speed of Kubrick.
yeah, well, and it's also it's a. I think what this movie, we'll get into it, but Redmond Barry is a very interesting like protagonist in the fact that he's kind of not interesting at
Yeah,
all. And
exactly.
he's kind of got a little bit of the Indiana Jones syndrome going on,
Mhm.
like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it's like the old theory, oh, if you took Indiana Jones out of that movie, the movie still happens with or without him. That's a
Well,
little bit what this movie feels like up until like the end of the until the end of the first half, start of the second act.
this feels like one of the movies that like my grandparents would have like back when they're alive of like it was something on the Revolutionary War, like a thick book, like there's that book like 1776 that like I feel like every parent had. That's just like a big
Great. David
thick like
McCullough, great.
coffee table book.
David
Yeah,
McCullough, great book.
yeah, but it's like a book that like it seems like that in cinematic form where like there's something for me also that I'm like just not
You know,
interested in that time period.
he wasn't sent to the Revolutionary War. It was the 7 Years War. I'm just making sure you're aware.
I'm more overall 1700s time
I
period to
I know.
like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's just something with you. Anything with like rolling European hills before cars, you're just like, I'm fucking out, dude. I don't care.
yeah, yeah. Like anything with fantasy, like that's why high fantasy also often doesn't work for me. Where like I just don't care about. I know this is not medieval times, but I don't care about medieval times type shit either. Um, so I don't know. It's something that just a disconnect for me. I mean, there are some exceptions in movies that I do like. One thing I've been wanting to revisit is The Patriot when I was watching this, because The Patriot feels like the dumb action movie version of this.
Yes. Yeah.
From
The
what I
doc
remember, because all I remember about that movie was like some guy's head gets taken off a cannonball in the middle of it.
and you're just like like 9-year-old Tommy catching that on TBS. Whoa!
Mhm. Yeah. So, um, but overall, like when it's just like a costume period piece where I'm like, oh God, like my girlfriend loves that show Bridgerton, and I'm like, you can watch that. I don't need to watch that.
Yeah, this is it's interesting though, because it's just like, what if every frame was a painting from that time period?
Yeah.
And like how gorgeous this movie is.
Mhm.
It's it's kind of stunning how it looks. It's just the content can be a little bit dry. I was doing some half-ass, research, and I saw that apparently this is the only film that Kubrick got bored himself filming, which I guess you could kind of see a little bit.
Mhm.
But
Definitely.
I think it's a movie that I wonder if on another rewatch of this, like, will my appreciation of it grow or diminish?
Yeah.
You know, it's
Well, it's like I was reading some reviews at the time, and I feel like Pauline Kael kind of summed up my thoughts. I mean, that apparently this is based on a book, and apparently it's a very quick-witted book. And it said that Kubrick took like a quick-witted story, and he, with the way he fucking controls his sets, the way he does all those takes and everything like that, it did not work for this project, and it drained all the blood out of this movie to the point that like, we might as well be watching like a 3-hour slide for fucking art history majors. And I do feel like I cheated myself a little bit by watching this on DVD, even though the upscaling was pretty good. But
you had the Criterion DVD, right?
yeah, it was the Criterion DVD I was able to rent. But still, I feel like even then, the shots were great and all, but that does not make for an entertaining movie for me.
Yeah, and I wonder like would I have had a different. The reason I wanted to cover it is I thought it was going to be in theaters, to be honest, but it turns out it's
Yeah,
only coming back in theater. It was only back in theaters this weekend in the United Kingdom and Scotland.
no,
So
yeah.
I wasn't spending a grand round trip to go see this in theaters.
Yeah.
Uh, kind of glad I didn't do that. So I, by the time we committed to it, we locked it in. I had already bought the Criterion. I was like, we're doing it.
Is this your like a slide in to become a physical media guy? Did you buy any other Criterions? I need to know.
Um, I will. So like, what I've started doing is going to used movie bookstore sometimes.
Hmm.
And if they have a Blu-ray for under $7, even if it's an older Blu-ray, like I'll just pick that up. I'm
Yeah,
not going to become like a huge Criterion collector because it's just see it's $20 to $30 per. It adds up, and I just don't have that much space for it regardless.
yeah. That's the main thing. I mean, I moved to a bigger apartment for many reasons, but one was like, I'm gonna have space for all my DVDs.
Yeah, I mean I will say you do notice the difference watching it on a disc than you do from streaming. I think we've
Mm,
discussed that before, but it's clear quality. It looks
mm,
so much better.
yeah.
There's no buffering, there's no staggering, there's no quality dip
Mm,
on the stream, and like ultimately they're calling it 4K, but they're still compressing the file and getting the
yeah.
minimal style of 4K, but that doesn't. It's not
And you
full
can really
4K.
tell at nighttime scenes in movies, which like for me that watches a lot of horror movies when like it's all night, you see the compression, it just looks like shit. And whereas like on disc, it looks perfect. So
Yeah. But we do have to talk about a big release, Tommy, that came
yeah,
out a couple weeks ago. We're finally able to get the band together. It's Superman, the movie of the summer. Some are calling it. Some are calling it the end of Warner Brothers. Some of us are calling it a fine, you know, popcorn movie that's pretty well done.
yeah.
Which camp are you in, Tom?
I think this movie was great. I loved it. I've also been in the Superman camp lately. I rewatched all the Christopher Reeves. I even watched Supergirl. I watched Superman Returns,
How is
which
Supergirl?
not good. It is the worst of all the ones I've watched. It's just like a shitty 80s movie where like back then they didn't really care about franchises as much. So like Christopher Reeve was like, no, I'm not gonna be do a cameo in this. So instead they got the guy who played Jimmy Olsen to cameo in it. We're like, whoop-de-doo.
Oh, great.
And
Jimmy Olsen shows up. It's like, cool.
yeah, yeah, and Faye Dunaway is the villain. And she's played a good camp performance, but still just like one of those things where it's just like, this is clearly a paycheck for you. And Peter O'Toole's in it doing a paycheck role too. So it's just like the
Ah,
worst like 80s sequel I just where they didn't like take care of the IP as much back then, where they're just like, fuck it, Supergirl, there's a love potion, some guy falls in love with Supergirl, and whatever. Here we go. Um, and Superman Returns, real quick, just to touch on that. I haven't seen that since theaters. What a
I think I
boring
only ever,
fucking
I think I only ever saw that in theaters, and
same.
I think
Boring.
I was like 10 or 11 whenever that came out, maybe 12, and I was just like, oh, that was cool. I guess it was a Superman movie, and then I never thought about it again.
It is like one of the most boring movies I've watched in a while, where it just on rewatch. I remember my like sixth grade complaint was like he doesn't punch and doesn't do anything. And then 20 years
Does
later, I was
he,
like,
does he really not punch?
not once.
He doesn't throw a punch in the movie?
Yeah. I mean, the big
What?
action set piece is that he lifts up an island full of kryptonite, and that's it.
He lifts up a island full of crypt, but isn't that what kills Superman?
I don't remember all the plot details, but still,
Did you
regardless, it was
just
just
watch it?
I did watch it, but it was basically like an island full of kryptonite, and somehow he was able to lift it up and like go through, and it almost killed him. And then there's one point where like someone fires a gun at him, and bullets bounce off him, but he doesn't punch him. He just like it's like, oh, here you go. But regardless, just like Bryan Singer, he took like the Christopher Reeve movies, which we covered the first one recently,
Yeah.
and those had like some fun in them, and they had some whimsy in them. And
Yeah.
he made a homage sequel because apparently Superman Returns is like kind of a sequel to Superman 1 and 2, the Christopher Reeve ones.
Hmm.
And he made a homage sequel to it, but he's like he forgot the humor. He forgot the heart in it. Instead, he just made like a boring, droll movie. So, but anyways, this new Superman, loved it. I thought that David Cornswell was greatly cast. I think that he
The
the
cast
film
was the
trick
best. The cast was the best part of the movie for me.
easily. Yeah. I think that like everyone was cast perfectly. I mean, like Nicholas Hoult felt like the Lex Luthor you saw in like those Superman cartoons from the 90s where like Clancy
Yeah.
Brown played him.
I
Um
thought Nicholas Hoult gave the best performance. Even though
hmm,
David Cornsweet like nailed Superman, it felt more like a Luthor movie a little bit than Superman movie, which maybe my one complaint about it. I thought it's very interesting because like the reviews are all over the place on this one, and
hmm.
people are like, "Oh, it's just James Gunn being James Gunn again," and I was like, I felt like he was very reserved in this one with his humor.
Yeah, and even like needle drops, I feel like there's maybe
He had
only
a
one or
couple.
two set pieces. Yeah, it wasn't as much as like pronounced as like the Suicide Squad one or like the Guardians of the Galaxy one. I feel like he definitely kept himself a little bit on like a chain in a good way though.
Oh yeah, yeah, he definitely kept the wheels reined in there. It's kind of your standard Superman story. I think the one controversy, spoiler alert,
Oh, spoiler alert.
is the that I want to cover here is the changing of Jor-El,
Hmm.
whose hot Bradley Cooper cameo that I was didn't see coming.
Hmm.
Was genuinely surprised by it. Not because I don't think he doesn't like James Gunn. I'm sure he enjoyed working with him on the Guardians movie, but he just did voiceovers there, and I kind of got
Hmm.
the sense it was a bit of a paycheck role for him. And then I was, I always got the sense like he didn't want to be in the MCU. And then here he is in Superman, and I was
Just
like,
showing straight up.
it's just straight up. And it's like in the first 5 minutes too of the movie, it's just like, is
Well,
that Bradley Cooper?
it is funny, like seeing that we covered the original recently, where like Jor-El was played by Marlon Brando, who I'd say is probably at a similar fame level of where Bradley Cooper is. Bradley Cooper's probably not obviously not as famous as Brando was at his peak, but
He's not as iconic. Fame level, they might be similar, but like Brando, especially now, like after he's passed,
but
is
regardless, the fact
well,
that like regardless that Brando had like a whole like first act of the movie was just Brando. Whereas this is just like, yeah, Bradley Cooper, he doesn't really speak English whatsoever, and it's just a quick cameo more than anything. Just more like quick in drop.
Lex
But
Lex Luthor comes in, takes this tape that's been cut off, and it turns out Superman was sent to Earth to enslave it, essentially.
mm,
Have
yeah,
harems of women, which is from most comic adaptions, that's a pretty big deviation from it.
mm.
It doesn't bother me. Like, do what you want in these things, like make them your own, you
I
know?
think that James Gunn, and I listened to this on the big picture where Sean Fantasy was talking about this, where James Gunn made a movie about himself, where Superman gets canceled in this movie, like James Gunn did years ago when he got fired off of Guardians 3. Essentially, that's like the equivalent of this, where like, oh, like this is what happens when a guy gets canceled. What this happened to the superhero story
Oh yeah, I
instead,
liked
right there.
I all I thought was when the monkeys, the typewriter monkeys showed up, I just kept thinking of the Simpsons bit, the it was the best of times, it was the
Yeah,
worst of times, stupid
yeah,
monkeys. That's what I thought
yeah,
the entire time.
literally. So, I mean, I think that overall, though, James Gunn was able to balance like a few good like tones and stuff like that. I don't think that he got too much into like the building out the universe. I think that it was fine with what we had with the characters that were there. They had their moments. Mr. Terrific was the only one who got like really added in, whereas like Hawkgirl and Green Lantern were just like, they'll be for a couple action set pieces.
Yeah, they weren't really in it. It I guess my one thing is like you know, I think it's tough to say like Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, and Green Lantern are like setting up the expanded universe because realistically, like Mr. what Mr. Terrific, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like he had a good performance there. Like that was a really strong showing from a character nobody's heard of before. But none of those three are exactly putting asses in seats, if you catch my drift.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not even the A-list Green Lantern, even though Nathan Fillion was hilarious in this movie. I think that more so it was just a way to build out the universe and be like, yeah, there's other already heroes out here, so like let's just have some like little B-listers to show that there's other heroes instead of
yeah,
Superman.
and
Because
I,
like you,
and I like that he just started it like 3 or 4 years into Superman. Like
Mhm.
he didn't do the whole leaving the planet thing. Like we didn't do it all again. We've seen they've done it like 4 times in Superman movies now. Like I we don't need it again. Everybody knows.
he James Gunn had a great interview like right before the movie came out where he said like the three things we don't need in comics ever comic book movies ever again. I don't need to see Batman's parents getting gunned down. I don't need to see like Superman like getting in a rocket ship away from Krypton exploding. I don't need to see Uncle Ben dying. It's like we've seen all those plenty of times at this point. Like that's why the Amazing Spider-Man movie felt so disappointing because the first half of that was just Uncle Ben and he gets his powers again, and then Uncle Ben dies. It's like, all right, we already saw this 10 years ago. Why don't you do something else with your new Spider-Man actor?
Yeah, and it's like the kind of tough. It's kind of the tough thing of like we have this IP rights. What do we do with this character? And if you get somebody lazy to do it, they're just gonna go, well, we'll start from the beginning again. I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
And
totally.
that's ultimately what happens. But Superman was fun. Go see it in theaters. You'll have a good time. That's
Yeah.
pretty much my main takeaway from it. It's a good summer popcorn flick. It is what it is. Box office is doing all right. It's on track for 700 million.
Mm.
It's not doing well over. It did really bad in China, which I like. I don't know what people are expecting. Like Superman is Americana. Like
Yeah.
I don't picture like Americana Man, the movie, doing like gangbusters in China. I'm actually
Eh,
surprised they would even let it air in China, to be completely honest.
Yeah, exactly. Like Superman is more so like American iconography more than Spider-Man and Batman are. Like, I feel like those movies can still play overseas, but like at a time when like politically like things are murky of America and how people feel about them, they don't want to see the American figure on screen as much. So
Yeah, I like. I'm not stunned that he doesn't play as well. He's literally truth, justice in the American way, right? Like that's
yeah,
his one of his catchphrases. Like
yeah,
and he's like the Boy Scout superhero. I'm not surprised that it's not going to clear $1 billion. And I think the only one of those that has cleared 1 billion was Batman versus Superman. And I mean, the name's in the title, right? Like they threw Batman in there, and everybody goes, "Okay, let's
Yeah.
see what you got."
Well,
And everybody left the theater disappointed.
a lot of people have been saying box office wise that this movie is kind of like what Batman Begins was 20 years ago, where it's like this is a movie to reestablish brand trust with people. Because when Batman Begins came out 20 years ago, the last Batman movie before that was Batman and Robin, which tanked the fucking franchise. And people are like, oh, I never want to see a Batman movie again. So Batman Begins came out and it did do $1 billion. I forget, it was like probably like 230 million or 300 million or something like that. Like a modest
Yeah.
like hit. And then once The Dark Knight came out, it's like, okay, now people love Batman again. And then Dark Knight just took off from there. So I'm excited to see where this new DC universe goes. Next movie is going to be Supergirl. And then they're going to do Clayface, which is going to be, what I'm hoping it's going to be is just a mid-budget. But James Gunn said it's going to be a straight up horror movie. So if they do like 20, 30 million like mid-budget movies within their universe, that's cool. Instead of everything needs to be like 100, $200 million budgets.
150
Because,
to 200 million CGI fest, same
yeah.
ABC, like everything we just got for the same decade. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to use these brands and stuff, like go genre with them. Like give me a rom-com here. Just give me a straight up comedy. Give me just mix it up, man. Like I don't need
Yeah.
a straight up superhero movie every time we get there. How do you think Fantastic Four is going to do?
I think it's going to do well. Early reviews, though, seem to be a little murky. I mean, some people are like, I saw someone on Twitter already say, like, oh, Superman, I'm sorry I was harsh on you. It's Fantastic Four just came out.
Yeah,
So we'll see where it goes. But I mean, I think it's going to be a hit, too, because that's the first Marvel movie in a while that does not feel like homework. Um, which is like the dreaded word now in Marvel because it takes place in a separate universe and all that stuff. So like, I don't need to know what happened in Fantastic, like all the other Marvel movies. I can just see this Fantastic Four movie and go in relatively blind and then have a fun time. Maybe the end credits will set up something for other Marvel shit, but it's not going to affect the majority of the movie.
all right. Well, is there anything else you wanted to discuss? Any other movies that you saw? I know it's
So real quick, I'll touch on this briefly before we go into Barry Lyndon. I saw the new I Know What You Did Last Summer and oh. So basically, yeah, it delivered what I expected in terms of like a slasher movie. The slasher kills were fun and like it was like cool thrilling sequences, but the characters were very annoying in this, and the way they treat their legacy characters in a way, which is so stupid that now we have to be like, oh, the legacy characters from I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like this is a franchise that hasn't had a movie in like 30 years. So do we really need to be like care about the fact that Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt are back? But the way they treat him was just like a fucking stab in the back, or a hook in the back for that franchise. So just weird, like 2.5 out of 5 for me is entertainment moments, but it's just at the same point, they have a post-credit scene too, where it's like, what are we doing here?
yeah, we
Does
don't
this
need
franchise need a post-credit scene?
we do not need a post-credit scene for I Know What We Did Last Summer. I was annoyed that there was a post-credit, even though it was like harmless, the post-credit scene in Superman. I was just like, oh, like I don't. Can we just leave this in the 2010s? Like I'm done with.
Well, yeah, thankfully in his case it's just like fun, quirky, like little stuff, like nothing crazy. Whereas like the new one was like, oh, another character is coming back. It's like, oh, spoiler. But regardless, I don't know. I mean, this wasn't a franchise that was ever A-list to begin with. It always felt like a knockoff of Scream. Then lo and behold, 30 years later, it's a knockoff of Scream again. So, but is what it is. Good to see Jennifer Love Hewitt back. Maybe she gets some more movies. That's the only benefit I can think of.
Maybe a little JLH comeback, but this is Barry Lyndon. All right, Barry Lyndon, the 1975 historical drama film, written, directed, and produced by Stanley Kubrick, based on the 1844 novel The Luck of Barry Lyndon by William Makepeace Thackeray. narrated by Michael Hordon, starring Ryan O'Neal, Marissa Berenson, Patrick McGee, Leonard Rossiter, and Harry Kruger. The film recounts the early exploits and later unraveling of an 18th century Irish rogue and gold digger who marries a rich widow to climb the social ladder and assume her late husband's aristocratic position. This is quite a movie. I feel like recently we've been diving in on the cast here, and after doing some research on all this cast, because I'm just sitting here, like I know a good amount of actors from the 70s, and then I'm watching this cast, and I'm like, I don't know a single person in this movie. And it turns out all of them are just highly regarded British stage actors of the 1970s.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan O'Neal, I've heard of him, but I've
Yes,
never seen Paper Moon. I know that's the big one of his. And the crazy thing about this movie in terms of casting was Warner Brothers like only agreed to finance this movie on the condition that Stanley Kubrick would cast a top 10 box office star in the lead. And so the top 10 stars at the time was number one is Clint Eastwood. Number two was Ryan O'Neal, shockingly, because he had
that
a bunch of
is
hit.
stunning.
Yeah, that's very shocking because you don't hear about him almost at all today. And then our top 10, just a real quick: Steve McQueen, Burt Reynolds, Robert Redford, Streisand, Paul Newman, Charles Bronson, John Wayne, and Marlon Brando. So really, for Kubrick, it was only between Robert Redford and Ryan O'Neal, and he offered it first to Redford. Redford turned it down, so he's like, "All right, I'll go with Ryan O'Neal."
Man, I'm just picturing Redford in this, and it's so much better.
Yeah, yeah. Because Ryan O'Neal, I mean, like you were saying earlier at the top, like how like he's probably the least interesting character in a way. I feel like a lot of this movie is very subdued. I feel like that's also probably the problem with the Kubrick multiple takes in this situation, where like he almost just takes the emotion out of everything. And Ryan O'Neal, I feel like it's a very subdued performance in a way that like this is why I was talking about earlier. The movie just felt very boring to me for a period up until we got to the intermission. Because once the intermission kicked in, this movie really kicked into overdrive for me. Where like I started to get a little bit more why people love this movie. So
Yeah, I mean from the top, it's a very especially for contempt. I guess Game of Thrones like kind of erased the taboo, but I guess it's a little different in like a fantasy setting versus like a real historical backdrop where Redmond Barry is in love with his cousin and is like trying to wed her, and then a British captain takes her hand in marriage, and he challenges him to duels. It's staged that
hmm,
he will win the duel and then have to run away because like the family needs money from this guy, and
hmm,
then that's what kicks off his adventure, right? Like his whole, he has to run away from home. He's in the hills of Ireland. He gets robbed and then signs up for the British Army, then runs away. Like there's just all these like incremental steps um, that lead Barry Lyndon on this journey to becoming, a highly regarded um, and very, very wealthy man in a time where it is not easy to do any kind of social jumping or, make that kind of money
hmm.
without being born into it. Um,
Ye- I think this is a movie that slowly started to win me over a little bit more as it went on because the first 30 minutes I liked. That was really fun and just like crazy way for the movie to begin with like really like his cousin seducing him, and that's the main romance in this movie, that it's his cousin he's trying to bed, which I thought was really funny, just the way that the whole ribbon thing was like, oh, is this gonna be like a romantic comedy kind of thing in a way, and definitely was not that whatsoever.
no, it was.
um very subdued. And then I just love the one scene in the beginning where like they're giving the toast to the guy that the cousin's going to wed, and then it's Redmond Barry's turn. I give him a toast and just throws the fucking glass at him. It's
It's
like, fuck
just
you, dude.
he's it's like the second time too where the family's like, "Yo, Redmond, we need this money, dog. Like, you gotta chill, dude. Like, it's your cousin. Like, you were never gonna marry her. Like, stop. Like, you're a babe." It's also very funny too, where it's like it's Ryan O'Neal at whatever he is, 30, and they're just like, "Look at him. He's just a child." It's got that
Yeah, I could
it's got
not I
that
could not buy
Goodfellas
in that.
It's got that Goodfellas thing where, like, at the start of the movie, we're supposed to think 55-year-old Joe Pesci is
It's
like
like
in his 20s.
it's almost like the Wet Hot American Summer thing, where like you have like 40-year-olds playing fucking teenagers. In that case, in the movie, is for the joke of that movie.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
And I mean,
so
I get it. It's like I just need him this age for 20 minutes of the movie. We're not doing this whole rigmarole of casting a younger Barry that's
mm,
5 years younger than Ryan O'Neal to then just have it be like that sounds like such a nightmare casting process.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, when it happens in movies like that's music, you don't need it. Like when we come again, bring back the Superman because we watched it recently. When they had that opening scene in Smallville where it's teenage Clark Kent, that could have just been Christopher Reeve, then the
Well,
movie
I
would
think
have not been different.
they overvoiced him with Christopher Reeve. I think when he's in the Fortress of
Yeah,
Solitude.
yeah, exactly. So it was just like it was already Christopher Reeve's voice. Why don't you could just give him some makeup and right there. But anyways, back to Barry Lyndon though. I did think the duel in the beginning with no, I don't remember any of the
Captain
characters'
John
names.
O'Neill.
Captain John O'Neill. The score was really good
Oh yeah.
throughout the movie in general, but like definitely the pounding drums in that scene where like with my surround sound system and hearing in the back just the drums just really got you locked into the scene. And I did not see whatsoever that coming. That was just a hoax that they just intentionally made it seem like he killed the guy to get Barry out of there.
Yeah. Just to get, and then pretty much everybody except for his one uncle from that point of the story is completely taken out of the movie. It's like, we're never coming back here again, guys. Just letting you know.
Yeah.
Um, but it's to me, it's interesting because I think the one thing we need to, you know, touch on here, which is arguably the star of the show, is the film's cinematography. We're
Mm.
definitely not expert cinematographers. We don't have any professional lighting experience whatsoever on the set. We both have overhead lights, we have fluorescent lights going on in
And,
both.
I mean, look at the lights we have on our camera if you watch this on video.
Yeah, so we're not like, but it's very apparent here. He uses these long double shots, slow backward zooms, and he shoots a lot of scenes entirely lit with candlelight, including these like indoor night scenes when he's doing gambling, things like that. It adds so much atmosphere. Um, it's crazy. And one of the big things with Kubrick, it's been what Tommy, let's talk about the moon right now. Now is the time in this podcast that we got to talk about the moon landing and the conspiracy theory of the moon landing and that we did not land on the moon. Now, I do
Yeah.
not believe this, but there are a lot of people that do believe this.
Yeah, like Kubrick himself did it, and like that's why Kubrick like was trying to make references to that in The Shining and everything. I don't believe it either. I think it's far fetched. I think that's like maybe took a little too many hits of the ball right there.
No, I here. Do you want to know what I believe?
What?
Because it comes. I'm tying this back to Barry Lyndon. This is all coming together because Stanley Kubrick was able to shoot these like, especially the candlelight scenes with lenses that were from NASA. Like he had NASA lenses, like the
Hmm.
kind of lenses they were going to use in there. What I do believe happened is that they shot something, whether it was a rehearsal to just see how it would go or not, like, or if it was, if case we don't get there, we still just want to stick it to the Soviets.
Hmm.
I think I think they did something there because otherwise, why on earth would Stanley Kubrick have NASA lenses for this movie?
Yeah. There is that aspect of it, just like a backup, just in case. Like maybe there's that. I'm not sure if I believe that too. I mean, I feel like something would have probably come up by now. I mean, the fact that we have a president that's trying to release JFK files. I mean, like at this point, who gives a shit if we fake the moon or not? I mean, we could have at least like released those files 60 years later. Most of the people involved that are dead.
Hey, the Epstein list doesn't exist apparently, so we don't need to worry
Yeah,
about it.
and this ties into our Apollo 13 episode we covered last month.
Just
Yeah,
you just shut your eyes and shut up. Don't even think about it.
yeah.
These settings are based on William Hogarth paintings. with exteriors filmed on location in England, Ireland, and Germany, with the interiors mainly shot in London.
Hmm.
Um, he one nice little fun fact Easter egg is that this is a big part of the IRA in Ireland, and Kubrick feared that this production, when filming in Ireland, was going to be a target of an IRA hostage.
Yeah, Kubrick of all people, too, which is fucking hilarious. Um, so in terms of the cinematography, I was disappointed. I rented this from the video store near me, and I know that Criterion recently released this on 4K. So sometimes the video store near me, video rental store, Best Video, shout them out. They'll have like the new Criterion, like 4K remasters of shit and stuff like that. So I went there today this afternoon and was like, all right, let me see if they have it. They didn't have it, but they had the DVD. I was like, all right, I'll sell for the DVD. I'll do that. And I definitely feel like if I ever rewatch this, which I'm not sure if I will, I'll need to see this in 4K because I want to see the full experience. Because I imagine with the Blu-ray, it probably was still like, you know,
It
like
looked
mind
fantastic.
blowing. Yeah, it looked fantastic. And while it did look great for the DVD, but it's still limitations of DVD for me, even with the upscaling, that I wasn't able to fully appreciate it. I feel like the way it should have been. Because it almost felt like, with the DVD I was watching, where it was like watching like a history class documentary that they did, or like one of those stage productions back in the day they make
Yeah,
us watch. Like I remember there was like a Tommy Lee Jones Revolutionary War movie I watched in history class once, back in the day, and like it almost felt like similar film stock to that. But regardless, it's just like just sweeping landscapes and just like all these things all shot naturally. Apparently, Kubrick was like thinking of like shoot on sets at first. And he's like, no, that's not gonna work whatsoever. I need to shoot immediately on like all these big like great like
estates.
estates.
Yeah, it's interesting to me too, especially in like contemporary filmmaking. Like I was thinking about this because like there's the story of Kubrick on the in production of The Shining that they had a scale model of the Overlook Hotel, and he would just have his producers in the office and like his cinematographers and stuff, and he would just spend hours and like keep these people there hostage essentially while he's just figuring out exactly where he wants to put the lighting for like 4 hours, like in 4 hour sessions, just like with like model signatures with like little lights in this replica, just like setting this situation up. And I'm like, where are our autistic dis directors? Like, are they just speed running video games? Are they just not getting into the medium now? Like, is it just not? Because like we're not getting that anymore. And I'm thinking of
Yeah.
Barry Lyndon. I'm like, they go to like 10 castles in this movie. It's shot all through the European hills. This would all be green screened and CGI'd. They'd shoot this
Well,
on a backlot. They'd shoot this in Atlanta.
well, it's one of those things that like shooting on location matters so much and helps the cinematic look. Where like I remember when Madam Web came out, terrible movie, but when Madam Web came out, people were comparing it to like the Spider-Man movie that came out years before. Was it No Way Home or whatever?
Whichever one, yeah.
And that one was shot. No Way Home was shot exclusively on green screens, even for New York scenes, and it just looked like shit. And like on rewatch, I feel like it's very apparent. You can see like, oh, this wasn't shot in city. Or Madam Web, a terrible movie, was shot in New York City and like in the city on location in some shots, and you can see it, and it looks amazing. It looks incredible. It's just like, why is this shitty movie look so good? And it's because they shot on location for a lot of the scenes, and that matters so much. Apparently, Kubrick for this movie, for Barry Lyndon, he called like Ken Russell, the director. He shot like The Devil. He made The Devils, Altered States, some other movies, and he asked him in the early '70s like where he found all these locations for his period movies. So Russell told him all locations, and Kubrick used those locations in this movie. And years later, Russell was like, "Yeah, yeah, that was great. I was pleased. Oh, fuck yeah." Kubrick got these locations away because it's one of those things you don't think about this in America because our American history is so recent. We're like going to a old house is like 200, 300 years old, but you go to England, it's like this has been around for 1,000 years. This one location, this one castle or something.
Yeah.
It's the history there. You can really still feel the history in that way, and you can't feel stateside whatsoever.
Yeah, the Roman Empire spanned to the United Kingdom. Like people don't realize how and
Mm.
like it's tough to think about it in this way, but like the nation states that we think of today like didn't exist until like around this time
Mm.
that Barry Lyndon takes place. But like the England and the United Kingdom itself had been around for so many thousands of years. Same with rest of Europe, that
Mm.
it's I guess it's very different to America, where everything is very new and there's not a lot of grand architecture in the same sense that there is in Europe. Which allows this movie to, I think this is like a testament to nature. I was bored one night this past weekend, and I was like looking up Studio Ghibli Miyazaki films. I've only seen Spirited Away. I've never seen any other ones. And I
Mm.
watched Grave of the Fireflies, which is a very, very sad movie.
You picked out like the saddest movie you possibly could.
It's a great movie. It's very sad, but in all of his works, it's remarked that there's such like a connection with nature. And I feel like this film has a similarity in terms of its like connection to nature. It's a scenic fiction. The settings are based off William Hogarth paintings, and especially during the battle sequences when anything in an exterior outside of a castle in Germany, in England and Ireland, wherever, it is like you're just sitting there and you're going, wow, like every frame it just seems like it could be in the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Yeah, and it's spellbinding. And before we get the Studio Gilby like nerds coming after us, Miyazaki didn't direct Grave of the Fireflies. It was another guy.
I know, I
Uh,
know, I know, I know.
yeah, yeah. But anyways, just to get you a quick fact check right there. But yeah, so in terms of the movie though, the biggest criticism I have of this movie is pacing. And I think this movie is just meticulously just like it's only for a while, especially once he leaves
Ireland.
yeah, Ireland. At that point, the movie just to me grinds to a halt for at least probably about an hour of the stretch, where that hour felt like the longest hour of my life in a way. There's a Revolutionary War sequence. Well, not Revolutionary War, the 7 Year War sequence, which I thought was really fun when he was in the British Army. But it kind of confused me where I was like, so is nobody firing their guns? Or are they just walking over there with swords and expecting something to happen?
Yeah,
um,
I mean that's what it was though. Like you're marching, you're trying to gain battlefield, and you would just form a line. I mean, it's what makes Napoleon as a general. Like I'm going into real history now, Tommy.
yeah.
Like he kind of broke up these like very classic military formations here. Took a
Mm.
lot of like Hannibal, who was in the Carthaginian Wars way back, and like really implemented them here, and like based his
Mm.
different armies and different battalions, and just the way he was able to maneuver them is what made him such an incredible general, one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Like versus this,
And
it's just like marching in a straight line, and if you get hit with a musket, like okay, you fall down, and
yeah,
then
it is funny.
the rest of the
Because
homies just keep marching, dude. Like we're taking
can you
territory.
imagine being the guy in like the front of the line, like, oh, I'm dead. Like immediately, there's no shot for me whatsoever.
Oh yeah, you're toast. You have 500 to 1,000 guns just aimed at you. Like you're probably gonna get hit.
Yeah, chances are. But after that sequence, once his friend dies and tells him all the thing about like, oh, how they lied to you, the duel wasn't real, he didn't actually die. The movie for me, just the pacing right there just slows and grinds down. And I was expecting this movie to kind of end with him finally meeting Lady whatever her name is, his cousin again, and that'd be like the grand like finale of that thing. And I was shocked that wasn't. But the build up to that of like everything, once he gets to the Prussian army, I was just like, oh my God, like, can we just get past this one part? It just felt like just so boring and just like I couldn't get
Really,
engaged. And
I thought the Prussian army. I thought that stuff was all fascinating.
I think also the problem with it too, for me, with this movie used a lot of narration. and Michael Hordon, he was a famous British actor at the time, and he was the narrator. And sometimes the narration worked for me, especially in the later second act after the intermission. But in especially in the sequence I'm talking about, it just felt like exposition drop, exposition drop, exposition drop, and just like over and over and over again to a point that like it didn't feel like I was watching a movie. It felt like I was watching like a history documentary, but a very boring one on the History Channel. Where I was just like, "Ugh, all right, cool. Just tell me everything about the Prussian army. I don't care about how meticulous are. You could cut that part out right there. I don't need every time the narrator dropped in and like said something, I felt immediately disengaged from this movie, and it
Well,
felt hard for me to get back into it.
I so see, like, I just think it's filled with like this is really where the character of Barry Lyndon, I think, kind of comes alive because he's not a particularly interesting person, like especially in his like dialogue, like as a character, like he's kind of played flat. But
Hmm.
then in the British camp, he gets into a spat with a guy and who's double his size. They get into a fist fight and he destroys him. He like dismantles him
Hmm.
in a fist fight. Like the other guy didn't even get a hit on Redmond. Um, and then it's just like these situations that he finds himself in where he's going to the river to fill up water for the British tankers. He sees uh, uh, an officer's uniform sitting on a tree. Two officers are holding hands in a river, very much implied that they are lovers there, which is very funny. It's a very Kubrick thing to put into a movie like this.
Yeah.
Just like this little like homoerotic scene of two men in a river like holding each other's hands
Hmm.
and where he goes and runs away. And then this is where I can kind of feel you. Like I think it kind of shows the kind of guy Barry is that he goes from place to place, but he escapes from the British Army. He's trying to get to Holland to just get on a boat back home. He's riding. He asks some random woman if,
When it got to that sequence, I was just like,
yeah,
oh
in Germany,
God.
where he like, oh,
Like
where can I get some food? And she's like, I can give you some food,
it
Barry.
felt like that scene like went on for a while for
Yeah, and
me.
then we're just spending 10 minutes with Barry and this lady that has absolutely nothing to do with like the plot of the movie. But when we get to the
And
second half, when we
this
get
is
to
not to say to me for movies like I can appreciate slow movies. Like I was thinking of like, we covered Before Sunrise, which is a movie about two people talking in a way that like I was never really bored. I was engaged throughout. I thought that was very um great movie. I think I gave that like 5 stars or 4.5 if when we covered it. And it's just more so just like the scenes that were added in or the scenes that didn't add to the plot, I feel like didn't really add much to the movie for me. It just felt like, all right, just like I wouldn't say padding because it definitely wasn't for Kubrick, but for me, I just felt disconnected. And then once I felt like I was engaged back in the movie, especially during the stretch, I would get right engaged, and then all of a sudden, narrator would come back in, and he would spell out some fucking exposition for 5 minutes, and immediately I'd be like, all right, well, I need to
the
find a way
narrator
back in this
never
movie.
the narrator was there for like a minute and a half tops.
But regardless, it felt like 5 minutes for me. In some points where it's just like I don't need to hear the interest details, or sometimes it's just like it was almost like a show don't tell type of thing where they just told you this happened to Barry and yeah, yada 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 yada. Where it's like okay,
The one point I agree with you in this is, and like we're already getting this sense that Barry is kind of a man of low character, right?
hmm,
Like what does he do in the beginning? He's trying to sleep with his cousin.
yeah,
She gets arranged in a marriage. She attacks him, duels him, runs away. Then he abandons his post in the army. He's trying to fit, like, I loved the sequence when he first meets Captain Pottsdorf in the Prussian army when he's riding and he's going just like he's saying the city that he heard earlier that he needs to go to. He is like 200 miles the other way.
hmm,
Oh, we'll get you directed, Captain, and he just kind of traps him. And this is where I thought like the narrator was really good because like impersonating an officer of an ally should get you killed. But it turns out the Prussian army is out of fighting aged men to serve this army, so they have to basically just like put people there in hostage.
Mm.
And then we see them doing the. I actually really loved that fight sequence of the stand they were taking against the French there. And Barry's in the window and he saves Captain Postdorf. Like I really liked that sequence. It's a nice little
Yeah,
like
that was fun.
that was
Yeah.
a fun action sequence. And then he's rewarded with like 2 coins for saving a captain's life. And then the colonel sitting there and is just like, we understand you have made great sacrifices, blah blah blah, but you are a man of low character. And like the whole narration leading up to that is just talking like Barry spent his time with the lowest of the low. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, but like maybe show us that he's like gambling and drinking and like we already understand he's a scoundrel, but like show us like either don't mention that and just make it like at this point in the movie we know he's a bit of a scoundrel.
Mm.
Plus
Well, well,
I
well,
feel
it's
like
it's it's
I
a
feel like
weird
it's
movie.
I feel like
It's a
it's a
we-
Ryan O'Neal problem. Like he's got a bit of a Boy Scout to him.
mm.
Like imagine Harrison Ford if he could pull off an English accent, which or an Irish accent, which I don't think he could.
Or even like the Redford thing. I feel like Redford would have pulled it off perfectly.
Yeah.
Um, in a
Yeah,
way.
because like you could
Um,
argue that like Harrison Ford came in and kind of not replaced Redford, but kind of took his spot, like that was
I
like
can definitely see it.
that kind of
Well,
character.
it's one thing with Ryan O'Neal, and maybe this played in the performance a little bit, but he like just fucking hated the Kubrick process. So for those of you who don't know, Kubrick, kind of like David Fincher, he's the type of guy where like you'll do 50, 100, 150 takes on a scene, right? Sometimes it'll just be like you go up to the scene, or like in Clockwork Orange, it was like one scene where David Prowse had to carry up Malcolm McDowell up and down the stairs 50 times or something like that, and like shit like that, where it's just like little tiny things where Rick wants to get the exact performance, and like when you get to the point when you're like even by like take like 20, you're like, "Ah, God," and I can't imagine like by getting to take 100, you're like probably
And
losing your
especially
fucking
if you're
mind.
doing, and it's not like you're getting a line wrong, like
Yeah,
mispronounced,
you're doing the
like
scene right, but it's the performance. One thing Kubrick wants
he's
to
missing
edit.
like an accent here is what he's looking for, or just like a slight facial reaction here that he's just not getting.
Yeah,
Could be very
so
daunting.
what happened with Ryan O'Neal was there's one scene. They it was claimed that Kubrick shot over 100 takes of the scene that Barry first meets Lady Lyndon, and at one point, Ryan O'Neal got so fucking exacerbated, he told Kubrick and said to his face, "All right, I'll tell you what we do. You act out my part in this scene, then I'll imitate you. Just give me a line reading. I don't care at this point. Like, just we're done."
Like I'm done with this, dude. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's kind of like the Eyes Wide Shut, where the contract that Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise signed basically said, like, yeah, if you do this movie with me, you're under contract until I deem that you are no longer under contract with me.
Yeah, there's one thing I love about like whenever we do a Kubrick movie is researching like anything that Kubrick did and how much he just like fucked up his actors. Like when we did Doctor Strangelove, George C. Scott, he was told that like, okay, so George C. Scott, we're gonna do like a couple takes. One take's gonna be over the top, and don't worry, I'm not gonna use this take. I'll be a little goofy, but don't worry, I'm not gonna do it. And then those are the only takes he uses in the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It's those are the only points that he uses in those movies. So the Chevalier de Balabar, we need to talk about this guy.
mm,
Um, Barry Lyndon's other Irishman. He's spent sent by Captain Pottsdorf to go spy on him in like a secret police, like a proto, like secret police kind of way, and
mm,
because they believe him to be a spy. And upon discovering he's also an Irishman, Redmond Barry breaks down in front of him and completely abandons Captain Pottsdorf because, granted, he has been a hostage in the Prussian army for over 2 years.
yeah.
Sounds like it would be a little bit daunting. And immediately, I love this guy. He's like one of my favorite characters in this. I love the introduction of him, where they're just speaking in German. And even on the DVD, they don't even give you captions. It's just like it's just German. I'm like, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, definitely know what's being said here. All right, awesome. And he's like dressed like a pope with an eye patch, with a powdered wig and like diamond birth beauty marks drawn on
Hmm.
his face. And I'm just like, and he's just this eccentric, cheating, swindling gambler. And it's like the kind of character that gives into Redmond's very worst inhibitions and
Hmm.
temptations and amplifies them and puts him into connection with a whole world of and network of people that he would never be able to get involved with. And it's what moves the story for Redmond and Barry moving forward there. But I love that first card sequence where, and I know you say the narrator's overstepping, but I love in during that sequence, which is just guys playing cards and Barry sitting there as a servant passing things around and the narrator's explaining, oh, well, when Barry wipes the table, that means he has this many diamonds, this many things, this many that, right? Um, and
Hmm.
it's all a way to scam him and some duke or whatever it was. It's like, I believe I've been cheated. I don't know, but I won't pay it unless you fight me.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of crazy that duels were just the way to solve conflicts back in the day.
Constantly. I mean, there's like what, like a few duels in this movie. I hate to break your heart, but the Chevrolet de Barbie was part of the movie where this movie lost me for at least like an hour, and that was part of the movie where like I just could not get engaged back in. Where I was just like, ah, God, like what they're doing cards now, and like even like I don't mind often the movies when like they don't give you the subtitles and stuff like that, but I was just like this whole sequence, like it really wasn't until the intermission kicked in that this movie like got me a little back where I was just like, oh God, this keeps on going.
Really, like when they're at the first castle after I loved the escape sequence too, where he's working with the police to basically set up a fake capture. So Barry dresses up as the Chevalier, like in the full costume and stuff. Meanwhile, he had already escaped across the border.
Mm,
Um, I was like, it was very funny because it was very clearly Ryan O'Neal in that costume, and
yeah.
the Prussians could not see through that disguise and basically drive a prisoner out of the country and drop him out on the countryside free. I just thought it was a
Mm,
very funny sequence. I loved that first card sequence where we see like him taking the bets, and then all of
mm,
a sudden it just cuts to Barry's arm and the ace coming out and sliding it over to the Chevalier and placing it down, and it's like it's all of this is and like you can argue whether it's paced well or if it's just all right, we've get it. Let's move this story along. This can be a 2 hour, 20-minute movie, Stanley. What are we doing here? But
Seriously.
each step of the way is just embracing the epitome of a scumbag that Barry Lyndon becomes.
Mm,
Like,
yeah. I mean, I think that some of the things in the first act kind of like paid off a little bit for me when it came to the second half, in a more way of just being like, okay, so this is all the things that he went through, all the hardships he went through, just to be in this boring, aerostatic fucking world where like he has to worry about like social niceties and stuff like that.
no,
I
it's
mean,
not
it's
even that. It's like because then at the second card game he meets Lady Lyndon. Um, he's married
that part I
to
liked. Like,
yeah, they had great chemistry, like or at least attraction off the bat, the way Kubrick used both of them like in sequence with like the way that they use their eyes to just sort of create an attraction in a world where creating that kind of attraction is bold.
mm,
Um, and I loved the scene where Sir Charles Lyndon dies and Barry comes in and he's like, "Good evening, sir." And he's like, "Ah, I see you've been taking my lady's company." It's like, "I don't know what you mean." He's like, "Listen, I'd rather be a cuckold than be a fool." I was like, "Oh, that's a line right there."
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and he's just like laughing in his face. But it's all to the character of Redmond Barry. And then it immediately we go into the second act. We go into intermission. Thankfully, it's not a full intermission on the DVD. I was like I'm sitting there and I'm just like, am I gonna have to like do some chapter skips or something right now? Like,
I was wondering at first, like I was like, should I just go to the bathroom real quick? Like, how long is this gonna be?
yeah, it's like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But I love that first interaction because Lady Lyndon in this made me think of the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood press tour, where that one reporter kept asking Tarantino, like, "Yeah, so, like, do you hate women? Because Margot Robbie just doesn't have that many di lines of dialogues," and he just goes like, "I refuse your hypothesis."
Yeah.
Which is just great because I think Lady Lyndon has like 10 lines of dialogue in the entire movie. Uh, she's not given
Yeah.
a in terms of at least dialogue. She's given a good amount in terms of acting, and like that feeling of betrayal because instantly they're on the carriage ride back to the Lyndon estate in England. It's a very famous sequence too of Barry and Lady Lyndon in the carriage. I think for some of my problems with Brian O'Neill in this movie, I think this is his best scene by far.
Mm.
They're just sitting there. He's smoking a pipe. Lady Lyndon goes, but Redmond, my dear, would you mind just putting out that pipe for a minute? He's just kind of ignoring her for like, and it's like intentionally like 20 some odd seconds. Like it's like just long enough where it's just like, okay. And he just leans over, takes another puff, and just starts blowing smoke directly in her face in this carriage. And it's like, oh, okay, like this is how it's gonna go. Like, and Lady Lyndon and her ex-husband had a son, so he's now stepfather.
And I love immediately how this stepson just like does not like
He
just
doesn't
sees
trust him.
through.
That's where it goes to the next one. The chaplain and him are in the other carriage. He's just like, oh, you're supposed to love your father. He's like, he's a huckster. He's a gold digger. I do not like him. And his read on him is right because it's
Yeah.
immediate. He gets to the castle. Barry gets to the castle, gets his wife pregnant, and then is immediately like going to brothels and like
I love it
hitting on
cuts
him
to
with
him in a brothel, like hooking up with like three chicks at once
picking
and
up
all
the
this
three
shit.
chicks at once, and he's like, "Yeah, Lady Lind," and like this is where I think the narrator is really effective. It's like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
Barry has kept relegated Lady Lyndon to the castle. She's not allowed to leave, but Barry will fulfill their social status."
Yeah.
And it's just like him in
So
the brothel.
it's weird because the narrator, I just did not like it whatsoever in the first act. But when it got to the second act, I thought the narrator was much more cleverly used and much more like for humorous moments and stuff like that. Whereas I felt like it was maybe less exposition dumps, and that's maybe what my problem was before. That it felt more exposition-y, more show don't tell, or more where in the second act it more felt like to underscore like a joke or something. Um,
So some of these, I think that the central theme of this is, you know, the narrator constantly talks about fate and destiny and like what the fate of
mm,
Barry Lyndon will be, and how it's kind of like set in stone. But we kind of see in the movie that it's like it's not fate, it's just like really bad choices because
mm,
Barry is not kind to Lord Bullingdon,
mm,
Sir Charles, son, his stepson. The first time we see them kind of interact one on one, the mother and him are going into town. He's not giving his stepfather a proper kiss. He's like, "Oh, we need to talk about this in private," and then taking out the whip, lashing him like
yeah.
ruthlessly. Um, and just like humility, because it's like the moment where the chaplain, Lady Lyndon, and Lord Bullingdon are in the garden walking. They just pan over and Barry's just making out with some chambermaid. Like,
Mm,
he's just very, very disrespectful. And it's all that character. It's all what that first act is building up to because uh, Marissa Berenson, who is still she's one of the only people still alive from this movie here. She's still working in
For the
2025,
first, yeah, yeah.
but she's, breathtakingly beautiful in this movie. And especially in a time like that, to be married from like nothing into becoming a aristocrat in the you in high British society. Like you would think like, huh, maybe I just stay loyal to my wife. Like I've gotten here, I've gotten to the mountaintop. And he just seems he's so dead set on it's not he knew how to climb the mountain, but he didn't know what to do when he got to the top of it. And he decided to instead of climbing down, he decided to like leap off of it.
Mm.
But I think it's an interesting thing about how it's all about fate. But for me, when I was really watching it, it's like it's not really fate if you just continually make bad decisions. If all of your past decisions, of you being kind of a low life scoundrel, and then you take this low life scoundrel and drop him into high society where that kind of behavior is frowned upon, he's still going to be a low life scoundrel. And that's kind of what this thought experiment is showing here. For you, what sequences in the second act specifically like worked the best for you?
I think that there was just like more so like of overt humor and stuff like that, and just like the general breakdown of Barry Lyndon in high society and like how he was so went to all these like pains and struggles to go through and stuff like that. And there's one thing I just realized in this movie that I didn't realize that Lady Lyndon is not his cousin in the beginning of the movie.
No,
I
Nora,
thought this.
it's Nora Brady.
Yeah, for some reason I thought that they're the same person this whole time. But anyways, I thought that was so funny that like he builds to all this stuff and everything that goes to it, and then comes to the point where it's just like, all right, like you are just like in like you have a little shitty stepson that you're dealing with, and you have all this little like pissy stuff, and even the fact that like how like pissy the stepson is in general once he gets older. The actor who plays him when he gets older, Lord Bullington, is this guy Leon Vitali, who ended up becoming Stanley Kubrick's like personal assistant from like 1980 until like his death. Like he basically just like during the production of this movie was like, "Hey Kubrick, like I want to be more on the behind the scene things." And like it took Kubrick a while to warm up to him, and eventually this guy became Kubrick's like right hand man up until his death. And even like after Kubrick died, this guy would go through and like help with like film restorations for old Kubrick films and stuff like that. Really highly involved. But I thought that he was hilarious in this movie. I
Yeah.
just love the one scene where like he's. I think this might have been his introduction as the older Bullingdon, where like he takes the other son, who just like with the in the middle of this musical performance, and just has the loudest shoes possible, and says to his mom like, "Oh, like all this shit about Barry," and then Barry just
Oh, well, you're talking about the famous fight sequence during the
yeah,
concert.
yeah. And he just really starts wailing on this kid, and everyone in high society is like, "Oh my God, oh!"
Yeah, well, so like the lead up to that is um we cut to 8 or 9 years later after Barry and Lady Lyndon's son is born, and we see the age gap at the youngest's uh eighth birthday party with the magician doing like very simple magic tricks, and he, we cut to the two boys studying and Lord Bundington getting into a fight with the younger Barry catching them, and this is like a man now. Barry's still
Yeah.
just cracking the whip on him there, and he's like, "You will not humiliate me again." And then he goes in there to this concert that Barry's throwing because Barry's main goal from his mother, who's he's now reconnected with at the castle, to get a title. So that
Mm.
way, because like he everything is needs to be signed by Lady Lyndon. He might have married into it, but he owns none of it. He basically spent all of her money, drove this, estate into almost bankruptcy
Mm.
to try to get this lordship, but he's trying to chase that title for himself to get some sort of protection here. And by basically trying to essentially kill his stepson and expose his cruelty, he's ostracized from the rest of the high society. And you notice it in the other scenes too, with these, big wide shots of these rooms. Like he was always full and like the camera's panning and then it just stops and it's like six people in a room.
Yeah. Well, I love also the scene where he goes up to one guy who he's friendly with earlier and starts talking to him about like, oh, like we should get together soon. What about this day? What about this day a month from now? Oh, I think I'm busy for a month from now, but I will let you know as soon as possible. Just clearly like, just get the fuck away from me, dude.
Yeah, yeah, it was a very I'll mail you if I'm able to make it that day for cards. Yes, thank you, sir. Um
Yeah.
and
And
then
I do just love how what ends up happening with Barry towards the end, where like Leon Vitali, Lord Bullington, that challenges him to a duel and straight up, and Ryan O'Neal, Redmond Barry's like during the duel, we see that Leon Vitali misfires his gun, and it's like you realize that that is your shot. You cannot do another shot,
I love
and
when he vomits.
the
Yeah,
acting of him just like okay, I'm fucked, I'm fucked, I'm fucked. And then it just cuts to Ryan O'Neal, and you think that Ryan O'Neal is like probably like, fuck this kid, I'm gonna shoot him. And he doesn't. He just like shoots to the
he
ground
shows
in a way
him
to be like,
it's odd that he shows him mercy there.
yeah, because he could have easily shot him, but in the way he's just like, let's just get this over with, like whatever. Like I don't want to deal with
I
this. Like all right,
I think the one because this is right after the son died in the horsing accident. One, I don't think he minded dying there. Um,
mm,
two, I think after kind of losing his social circle, he wanted to try to somehow like reclaim his honor in a way. And after,
yeah, yeah,
this kid challenging him to a duel clearly misfires his pistol. He's like, okay, this isn't like me taking advantage of him and just killing him here
yeah,
isn't going to be good. And then he gets his leg shot off, and Lord Bunnington takes over the castle, kicks him out to Ireland again as a cripple, and they have to send him 500 gold a year for the rest of his life, which, like, I know to these aristocrats that's not a lot, but I'm pretty sure if you're like a poor person at that time, like 500 gold is a lot of money, like a lot of money. Like, that's what's really
yeah.
funny about it.
And
Uh,
it's just so funny at the end, just how like you have like what's her name, Lady Lyndon, just like sign the thing at the end of the check, essentially.
yeah, and,
Or
and I love
and
that stare of just like it's like that once a year reminder of the monster that nearly destroyed their family.
yeah.
Um,
So and a fantastic title card that I want to pull up the exact quote. It was like
which one?
rich or
The
poor.
epilogue?
Yeah, the epilogue. The epilogue, like
Yeah, the epilogue was a fantastic one. I'm
it
also
was it was in the reign of George the Third that the Fred said personages lived and quarreled. Good or bad, handsome or ugly, rich or poor, they are all equal now. Just being like, yeah, all this fucking pithy shit, all this like, high society stuff, it doesn't matter. They're all 6 feet under now. Like
they're
no
all
one's
dead.
alive. They're all equal in status.
Very true. Very, very true.
I am a star. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I am a big, bright, shining star.
So, and I know you're knowing your taste too. I know you tend to not love films with more theatrical acting styles. So I feel like here, just quickly, like for you, like who's your favorite performance in this? Because like I feel like a lot of times this segment for us, it's like usually a given maybe between two, but I feel like in this one, it's kind of like I don't know.
It's a lot easier when it's like Days of Thunder and it's like, all right, it's Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
um, so for us here, Barry Lyndon, I'm gonna go Leon Vitali as Lord Boynton, the older version. I think that it was just a great comedic performance. I think that really unlocks something for this movie. I felt disengaged with this movie throughout, and then once the intermission kicked in, it really took over. I think a lot of part of that why I started to appreciate this movie more was because of Leon Vitali's performance. And I'm not shocked to see that he ended up becoming like a very important figure in Kubrick's life not long after this movie. But just like the great little comedic things, and even how he says like, "Oh, I won't like." I'm not satisfied with this thing during the duel, and the duel is just such a great like comedic highlight in this movie. This movie, I feel like I'll rewatch. I feel like I'll appreciate the humor a little bit more. But it really comes out for me in the second act. I think that Liam Vitale is a big part of that.
And I feel like once you got in, like, because you probably came home from work and put this on, like, didn't even have a moment to breathe because it's like, yeah, Tim, I know I make you watch a lot of horror movies, but at least those are 90 minutes flat. Like, you're like, well,
That's literally my thought process. You know me so well.
I didn't know it was 3 hours, to be fair. Um, I just was like, oh, I think this is coming out in theaters. Like, let's watch it. Like, that'd be a fun one to watch in theater. Um, So I'm between three. I'm between Patrick McGee as the Chevalier de Balibar. I'm between Godfrey Quigley as Captain Grogan. He's the family friend at the beginning we kind of touched upon, the one that he reunites with at the camp. I just loved his performance as kind of like drunk father figure.
Yeah.
Um, and I would have to say Liam Vitale. I think I'm going to give it to Patrick McGee as the Chevalier de Balibar. I know it seems wild to me, but I was just entranced with this guy every moment he was on screen.
Mhm.
Um, it's a lot of silent acting, but it's just the way that he like poised himself and positioned himself and the influence that he had on Barry Lyndon's life.
Yeah.
I I loved that character. I thought it was a really fun character. You know, especially after that part in the, in the Prussian army where yeah, maybe it slows down a little bit. Um, that we get this kind of like character of levity, just like this ridiculous human being, and I thought played off very brilliantly by Patrick McGee.
Ah, are you ready, comedy partner? Waka waka.
Tommy. We've had some ridiculous ones. I think this one might take the cake though. Does Barry Lyndon work as a Muppet adaptation?
Well, to be fair, first of all, we've already had a few like period piece Muppet movies. Muppet Treasure Island, and which is similar time period,
Christmas Carol?
and Muppet Christmas Carol, which also similar time period. So I mean, just from a setting place, yeah, you could definitely drop that in. This is definitely to be kidified, definitely. I mean, Kermit would be Barry, probably. I imagine.
Yeah, probably. You do have a fun cast of characters, I think, actually, to put the Muppets here. It is like weird. It's a drama, but it's very weirdly a dark comedy also. It is a movie I'm interested in rewatching again, now kind of knowing it and seeing if the humor kind of jumps at you more when you know exactly where it's going.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like I could definitely feel like myself appreciating this more. For me,
Well,
right,
I'm imagining Kermit like beating the shit out of like his like son, like Leo
like
Vitale.
the little baby frog one or like a teenage
Yeah.
frog one, just like
Yeah, yeah. That'd be amazing.
there'd be funny moments there. I just I just picture it being a tough sell for everyone. There's like five people who would watch this, and you and I are two of them. So
Yeah.
it's probably best we leave this one shelved here. All right, review time, Tommy. Give me your score out of five. I'm I'm I am writing down my guess of what you're going to score here,
Okay.
and then
So,
I want to see if I get it right.
I hated like the middle stretch of this movie. It just took me out completely. I felt the narration was too much. That was constantly hard for me to get engaged and get like locked into this movie. And but despite that, the first 30 minutes I thought were strong. And I like the second act. So it's a weird movie where like there's parts of it I really like and parts I just can't stand and think are just like, oh God, what a drug. So I'm gonna go. I'm leaning towards a 2.5 out of 5 for me because I liked half of this movie.
I got it. You see that? 2.5
Yeah.
out of 5. Wrote that down. I
I
knew
was I was
I
leaning
knew
toward a
it.
2.5 and a 3. I think that this is a movie that like on rewatch I'll probably appreciate more if I do ever rewatch this. And if I'm definitely like Timmy said, not in a mood where I just got off work and have to watch this movie. But The second act definitely was appreciated more. I definitely felt like if a stronger edit, maybe less than relying on narration, especially in the beginning, I would like this movie more. But for now, first watch, wasn't really the biggest fan of at least the first half of this movie. So
I think I so for me, I'm between two scores. I'm between a 3.5 and a 4. I think part of it is that the narration half of it is like in the lens itself. Like this is truly one of the most breathtaking films I've ever seen committed to film. Like the
mm,
cinematography in this is out of this world good. If you want to see an example of like what is good cinematography, fire up Barry Lyndon. If
mm,
you're trying to show off your 4K, your 8K TV, whatever you got, fire this one up. It won't disappoint in that front. Um, it gets botchy in the pacing. It feels its length, and I feel like sometimes a really good 3 hour movie just it's like watching for me. It's like watching a Lord of the Rings movie, and it's just like, oh, okay,
that's not a
oh,
good example for me either.
I said for me. I said
Yeah.
for me specifically, for me and everybody else except for you, weirdo. Um, I think right now I'm gonna lean a 3.5 out of 5. Like it's good. It's Kubrick. Um, I feel like I'm almost a little bit disappointed. I've heard so much great things about it. I went on Letterboxd and I think it had a 4.4 out of 5 average score on it,
Mm.
and I was like, really? Like that's really high.
Yeah, exactly. That felt like extremely high, and on IMDb, that 8.1 out of 10, which I feel like
That
that's
sounds that
high.
sounds that sounds about right for IMDb scale, to be fair,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah.
Um, I wonder upon a rewatch if if my appreciation for this film will grow.
Mm.
Um, because it's a very weird film where I feel like again if you put like someone just a little more charismatic like Redford in the role of Barry Lyndon, it just this movie goes to another stratosphere of good.
Yeah.
But cool. Fun episode, Tommy. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. You can follow us on social media. That's at Seen It Pod. That's on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. We're also on Blue Sky. That's podscient.bluesky.social. So check us out there and leave us a 5-star review. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us out. It helps us grow the show. So Timmy, I think that should bring back in my court because he made me watch Barry Lyndon. Movie that sometimes when we cover a movie that we haven't seen before, it's like, oh, like yeah, I meant to get around to this. This is a movie like I told a couple friends who were watching Barry Lyndon, and I was like, yeah, I'm not shocked you don't like this. Does not sound like a Tommy movie. So I think that we should bring it back to my court. Zach Kreger, he's coming off a new movie next month called Weapons. Have you ever seen his first movie, Barbarian?
No.
Okay, so
We can cover Barbarian, but the first movie we are covering is the 75th anniversary of Sunset Boulevard
all right,
at the top of August. August
very
3rd in AMC theaters, probably Regal Cinemas and other theaters too. They are re-releasing this masterpiece in theaters. So we're gonna both go see it in theaters.
it better have better pacing than Barry Lyndon, which
It's
I'm
like
sure it will.
it for sure does.
Yeah,
Um, I don't think it's longer than 2 hours. But
that's what I like to hear.
we're covering Sunset Boulevard next, and then and then and then we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, this I didn't know what to expect. It's Stanley Kubrick, man. Like I feel like you could like any Stanley Kubrick movie.
To be fair, like all the other Kubricks I've seen, I think I've seen like eight of his movies or something like that, or six. I've liked them all. I mean, like we covered Eyes
We've
Wide
covered
Shut. I
two of
think I
them
was
on
the
here. You
person
loved
that
them. Yeah.
I was the one that I loved Eyes Wide Shut out of all of us on that episode.
I loved that movie too, but you definitely liked it more than I did.
Yeah.
Sex pervert. Okay. So thank you all. We will have a great month. Maybe Barbarian, maybe not. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you next time.